Thank you for joining me for a walk in the garden. I'm Liz Davey, and this is one of a series of garden shows that is being filmed in my garden by NCTV, Norfolk Community Cable Television. Today we're starting, as usual, in the herb garden, and right now there's a lot of things that can be picked in the herb garden and preserved for use in the winter when we can't come right out here and pick a sprig of this and a sprig of that as we're cooking dinner. One of the things is oregano, and that's right here, and I will pick a few sprigs of that. I'm going to dry the oregano. It seems to dry quite well. And you want to pick about 3 times what you think you'll need, because when you cook with herbs, you use about 3 times as much fresh as you do dried. So we know that when this dries, it will shrink up to about 1/3 of the volume it is now. And I'm just going to put a rubber band around this bunch, and then we'll take it in and hang it, and I'll show you how we do that when we get inside. But I do use a rubber band instead of string, again, because it does shrink up. If you put string around it and tie it, it will fall out, where the rubber band will continue to hold it tightly around the top, and it won't fall off. You want to pick your herbs for drying right before they flower. And looking at this, it is almost ready to flower, but not quite there yet. The same with the tarragon, which is right next to it. We also have available lemon balm, which we'll be using in a recipe today. And we have lime balm and lime thyme over there. Lemon verbena. I like to use the citrus herbs in the summer. They seem to go with so many of the summer foods. Another thing we'll be using is mint. And I have several kinds of mint. This one is orange mint. I have apple mint up here, and over on the other side we have some chocolate mint. I'm going to be using some chocolate mint and some of the orange mint in recipes today, showing those recipes at least. You can also pick some sage for drying. Sage dries extremely well and is nice in a lot of winter dishes. But you can also wait on that, because this one isn't ready to go to seed yet and flower, so I can wait and dry that a little later and concentrate on those things that are ready right now for my drying. Not much to do in the herb garden, but to enjoy them, and that's one of the best things of having an herb garden, is to be able to come out and enjoy them fresh in things that you cook. And just to enjoy looking at them, touching them, smelling them, and generally keeping ahead of them. Some of these herbs are not culinary herbs, and they can be picked and dried and used in things that would prevent moths. I like to use some of this tansy in my workshop, where I tend to have mice. They don't seem to like it, so I put some of that out there, and it seems to help keep the mice out. That and mint are 2 things that mice don't care for, so if you have some of that dried, it does help. It may not prevent mice, but it does help in the garage and workshop and places outside. And I like it better than poisons, of course. All right, let's move over to the perennial garden. We're going to look at some of the things that are blooming in the perennial garden. Right now is high season for summer blooming perennials. Our spring things are gone. Most of the bulb foliage has ripened and been removed. We're removing it as it ripens, and there will be a few more things that need to be removed as we go along. But for the most part, the daffodils have all been removed, and the tulip foliage. This is a Heliopsis, a nice yellow plant. The Eupatorium won't bloom yet. It will have a white bloom later on, but its dark leaves are a nice contrast with the yellow. And the blue platycodon and the echinacea pink daisy form flowers. This is a purple daylily with a yellow center. It too goes nicely with the heliopsis and the eupatorium. If you think in terms of what goes with what, usually you can kind of match things up so that you have a pleasing combination, and a variety of leaf shapes and sizes and foliage shapes, as well as some color combinations that work together. Daylilies are at peak right now. Each one lasts but a day, and then the bloom drops and a new one takes its place. Once the whole stem of daylilies has gone, I will cut it off at ground level. Again, as we go along, this penstemon is finished blooming, and we can cut that back all the way. I don't expect it to reseed. However, we have a few foxgloves here and there in the garden. There's a purple one back here and a yellow one. Those I will let reseed because I would like more foxgloves. It's a biennial. It blooms one year, it forms foliage the first year, then it blooms and then it dies. So these will not be here next year, but they will reseed, and that plant will come up next year. I have some behind it that are foliage this year that should bloom next year. So if you just keep them going and let them reseed, you should have foxgloves in the garden pretty much every year. Again, coral bells are blooming, continue to bloom, especially if I take off any that have passed by. They will continue blooming. Moving down this way, I have a rose. This is one of the knockout roses. This is the pink knockout. And this year I'm bothered a bit by Japanese beetles or a similar type beetle. It looks a little different than a normal Japanese beetle. I'll have to look that one up. But I have had to pick those off and squash them almost daily in order to have some roses. And you can see here the petals have been eaten. So I need to watch those and make sure that I get them off. Behind that, we have some veronica, blue spikes. And again, that one will rebloom nicely if you take those spent blooms off. And just once they have gone all the way to the top, snip them off, and they will keep throwing up new bloom shoots for quite a while. Phlox is in full bloom right now, and that one is a blue paradise phlox. It looks different as the day goes by and the light changes. Sometimes it looks quite pink, and other times it looks quite blue. But it is a nice phlox, and it is pretty much mildew resistant. We have brown-eyed Susans that are just putting on buds right now, and a bright yellow coreopsis to add a little sunshine to the garden. This one is a stachys, and it's a white one, and it also comes in purple, and it will spread, but it spreads quite nicely, and you can remove the pieces and put them on other places or share them with other people. It doesn't spread vigorously, which is quite nice. I'm again moving some of the potted things in to take over where the bulbs foliage came out. This is a eucomis or pineapple lily, and this one I planted last year in the same pot, and it bloomed beautifully last year, and I stored it over the winter in an unheated bedroom, and lo and behold, when I brought it out this summer, it came up again, and now it's blooming. It's kind of adds a lot of interest to the garden. The blooms look like little pineapples. There are bulbs. It is a bulb that is planted, and it is not hardy, so if you leave it in the ground over the winter, it will not come back. You need to take it in. That's why I left it in the pot. The pineapple sage is ready to pick, and this is one I love. It smells like pineapple. It loses that when you cook it, so you have to use it fresh, cut up fresh in a fruit plate or something like that. Again, we have more daylilies, potted plants, and the lilies and the nicotiana, and then that is flowering tobacco, and it is self-seeded from last year. I also planted some in a pot, which I have filled a spot with, but it does return. I've had to thin it out, otherwise I would have just a whole field of it. But it's quite nice, and it too will continue blooming for quite a while. The lilies, however, will be deadheaded as soon as the whole stalk is finished. But I'll leave the foliage on so that we'll have some strength that returns to the bulb for next year. The delphinium also is a plant, or I'm sorry, it's not delphinium, but it has returned from last year. It's larkspur, and it's self-seeded, and it's starting to set seeds again. I'm going to let this one go to seed because I like it, and I would like to see a little more of it in here. So we'll let that one go to seed, and we'll have some hopefully next year. Moving back here, I have a butterfly bush which is not bloomed yet. This was cut back all the way to the ground in the spring. And next to it I have a hummingbird feeder. And you add the liquid to it. You'll notice it isn't pink. You don't need to have red color in it. In fact, the red color isn't particularly good for the hummingbirds. But you do need to change it frequently. I'm noticing I have a few ants in it. The hummingbirds will not come if there are ants in the solution. The solution that I make is 1/2 cup sugar to 2 cups of water. That's a 1-to-4 ratio of water to sugar, or sugar to water. And the hummingbirds like it very much, and I was hoping maybe we'd have one visit with us. In fact, I believe there's one on the phlox right now. No, that's a hummingbird moth, which is a very similar thing. And I don't know if you can catch it with the camera or not. No. The hummingbirds will also be attracted to the butterfly bush. With purple stems, we should have a lot of butterflies in the garden. If you haven't already ordered bulbs for fall planting, now's the time to do it. All the catalogs are now out and coming in the mail. You can also check online with various companies. If you just do a search on fall planted bulbs, I'm sure you'll find as many dealers as you could possibly want. I get a number of catalogs because I regularly order bulbs. If you followed my advice and made a little plan and took some pictures of your garden this spring when the bulbs were in bloom, you will know where you want to plant them this fall. Otherwise, it's kind of a picky situation because you don't know where they're under there waiting to come up next spring. But you want to plant them where you need them, and it's good to have a plan. If you have pictures of your garden, usually you can tell where you want to plant new ones. But now's the time to make your orders while there's still a good selection. A lot of people don't think about it until fall, but they are available for order right now. They may not be shipped right away. They'll be shipped more when you're going to plant them in September or October, but you need to get your order in to get the things that you might want. Now let's move into the vegetable garden. There are still many things in the vegetable garden that can be picked. Right now we have the herbs that came up voluntarily. That would be cilantro and dill. And I have my squash plants growing. I've pulled out the early spinach and arugula. And today I'm going to plant some other seeds. I'm going to plant a little more lettuce. I've already planted a little more cilantro, something we like. And I'll plant a couple different lettuces and some more arugula. Again, these will be a crop that'll last into fall. And I don't think the glove is going to work. Maybe for one hand, but it's never too late to plant seeds, as long as it's still July or early August. For some of the things that mature a little quickly, like lettuce, you do want to cover it a little deeper than the ones that were planted earlier. Another thing I'm going to plant more of is radishes. Those have long been gone. They are a very large, quick bloomer. And I want to spread those rather thinly. And even so, they'll need to be thinned out once they come up. The squash that are next to them are bush squash that are already starting to bloom and blossom, and the radishes will go quite quickly, so I don't believe there'll be too much in the way. I also have another type of lettuce, and I'll put a little of that in too. I'll leave a little space around that squash. This will give us salads right up until frost. Hopefully. This is some of the cilantro that I planted earlier, not with my main crop, but several weeks ago, and that's almost ready to use. We've been picking peas regularly, and I'm still getting a few of the snow peas. You can see I can pick a few of those here and there. The main crops are gone on all of the peas, and very soon they will be pulled out, and that will leave room for other things. On the other side of the peas, I have planted a few other things. Again, some of the greens and some more lettuce. So that should be ready before this planting, and again, should carry us through. Garlic is starting to show signs that it might be ready to harvest soon. You'll notice the lower leaves are starting to brown. We want to wait until there are about 3 or 4 green leaves and the rest are brown, and then we can start looking at it and see what kind of bulbs we have. Once it's ready and we have 3 or 4 of the brown leaves, or only about 3 green leaves left, we can start harvesting that, pulling it out of the ground, and then curing it. And I'll do that in my garden shed, probably at a later time. The flowers I planted earlier are starting to bloom, and they will come into full flower in another couple weeks. Again, these are the winter squash that I planted, and they are a bush variety rather than a trailing variety. They will trail a little, but not significantly. Again, I'll keep picking the peas, and at some point, when they're completely finished, and I think these snap peas are about at that point, although there are a few more blossoms, then we'll just take the whole row out. My strawberries are continuing to form runners, and those we can place wherever we'd like a new plant to grow, and they will start putting down roots. Some of them already are starting that. I will keep them weeded as much as possible, but it's nice to kind of space those plants out. Ultimately, we'll have a row probably 3 feet wide of plants for next year. These are the bitter greens from earlier harvest, and these can be cut back and harvested, and perhaps they will put up another flush of bloom. They are a cut and come again type of green, so that we may get some more. Beets and carrots are doing well. We'll start to be able to pick those soon. And the other one that's doing well is the kale. And we're going to make a kale salad a little later. And this is the kale I'm using. This is a dwarf kale, and it seems to be very young and tender. I also have another kale over on the other side, over here. This one is a more traditional kale with a larger leaf. And again, you just snap the leaves off of any of these greens, and they will keep growing. Don't harvest the whole plant, because it will keep growing leaves and you can keep harvesting it for a long time. I will be picking kale to freeze. I found that it freezes quite well, and you can use it in soups and other dishes all winter. I like it with pasta and also in soup, and it makes a great soup for winter with sausage and potatoes and some of the heartier vegetables. Cucumbers. We're finally getting to use the strings on our teepee. These take a little help sometimes, if they don't want to go up the strings, you have to bring them over and show them where they are. The idea is to have this teepee covered. And we're already getting some blossoms on the cucumbers. And you can see some tiny little cucumbers in there. So it won't be too long if the weather stays warm and we have a little rain, and we'll have some nice cucumbers. Beans are starting to put on blossoms, and we'll be picking beans in a few weeks too. So we have lots of vegetables. We have green tomatoes. Nothing has ripened yet, but the small cherry tomatoes will probably be the first ones that we have from the garden. I'm picking raspberries, and I've put my nets over the top of those berries, hopefully to keep the birds out, but it's not doing too much for the chipmunks. I'm getting a quart or so every couple days, but I think there would be more if the chipmunks weren't squeezing their way underneath and harvesting the fruit for themselves. So we're going to have to work on that. I put up my scarecrow in hopes that maybe that would scare them off a little bit, but so far I think they're still having a good time eating raspberries. Now let's move back to the shade garden. In the shade garden, you'll remember that the hellebores bloomed in the spring, and at this point it's time to cut off those old blooms. They've already gone to seed. I like to have them go to seed. I share the plants with people, but we can cut off these old bloom stalks now. They just are a bit unsightly on the plants. I will not, however, compost these because the plant is rather toxic. In fact, it's quite toxic, so these will get put into the trash a little later. Right now is the time that the hosta are in full bloom. If you like the blooms, leave them on. If you don't, you can take them off and don't let them bloom at all and just enjoy the foliage. I don't mind the blooms. It adds a little brightness to the garden. But when they're finished, I do cut them all the way back to the ground. I don't like seeing dead stalks hanging there. It's important if you have potted plants to keep them watered. If we don't get enough rain, we need about 1 inch a week. This is a caladium. We potted those up inside in the spring, and they're starting to develop. The leaves will become larger as time goes on, and they add, again, some color to spots in the garden that spring things have already gone, and I have several of those here and there in the garden. Again, these are some of the spring ephemerals, and they are quickly going. This one was a trillium, and as you can see, it's dried up, and the leaves can be removed at any time. It's time right now and through the month of July to take some softwood cuttings, and you may want to know what a softwood cutting is. This is a mountain laurel or kalmia, and the dark brown is the hardwood on the bush or shrub, and the lighter green part that is just grown is what would be the softwood. So a softwood cutting would snap off and is not quite settled. You want a few leaves on it, but not too many. And we can take that in and put it in our Forsyth pot that we built last year. I'll bring it out. The Forsyth pot is a pot that's filled with perlite, which is a very light synthetic material, and you dip the cutting into some rooting powder. This is a hormone that the plant naturally will produce, and you want to kind of be right under where the leaves were, and then you put it in to the potting medium and hope that it takes. Sometimes you can cut the leaves back so that there won't be as many. I've done a variety of shrubs in here, and we'll leave them under cover for about 3 weeks and then check and see if we have any roots. It may or may not work, but what have you got to lose? You might just be able to propagate a couple new shrubs. by taking softwood cuttings. Once these have rooted, they can be moved to a nursery bed or into pots that can be sunk in the ground for the winter and then planted out in the spring where you'd like a new shrub to grow. Again, the little pot in the center will keep filled with water, and that will give them the moisture that they need to grow. Now let's go inside and see what we can do with some of the things that we've harvested from the garden. This is the way I dry the herbs that we picked. I air dry them. You can dry them in the microwave, and thicker leaves might work a little faster that way, especially if it's humid. But I just use a Christmas tree hook, a Christmas tree ornament hook, and I fasten that under the rubber band, which is holding them in place, and then I put them on a laundry rack. This is just a folding laundry rack, and I'll fasten the little Christmas tree hook to the top of it, easy on, easy off, and then I'll put this rack probably in the back corner of my dining room, or it could go in a bedroom, or someplace where it's not going to be bothered, where it's kind of dark and kind of cool, and definitely where it's dry. And then these will dry in just a matter of weeks, depending on the humidity in the room. And then at that point, you can take them off the stem and crush them and bag them or bottle them for use all winter. You want to make sure they get thoroughly dry. They will lose their color and turn a little brown, but that's perfectly normal as you see the spices in the jar in the store. But these are going to be much better because they're fresh from your garden. And you can also do basil this way. Although basil sometimes I like to put on a tray, and I'll put that right on top of it, on a tray on a paper towel. Put the basil on that to absorb the liquid from the basil, and let it dry until it's all shriveled up, and you can have it for your pizza all winter. The first thing we're going to work on today is a kale salad. If you have a barbecue and you want to have the normal steak, chicken, hamburgers, hot dogs, and you have a few vegetarian friends, we all have them. I like to eat vegetarian sometimes myself, but not all the time. At any rate, most of the time you'll have a family member or a friend that would prefer something that was vegetarian. And I'm making two things today that would be very good served at a cookout, and they are vegetarian. Though beware, those people who are not vegetarian are also going to like them and probably consume them as well. The first thing is a kale salad, and this is a Thai-inspired salad. And I'm using edamame, which are soybeans. And these have been cooked. They come in a package, frozen. I got mine at Trader Joe's. This is the package. Edamame are soybeans. That's all they are. And they really are a nice addition. They have a lot of protein in them. And I've cooked them and chopped them a little bit. Next, we'll add a red pepper and a yellow pepper, which have been, again, sliced very thin. Three scallions, which have been chopped. A cup of cilantro. 3 carrots, which have been shredded. You can see this has a lot of vegetables in it. It's low in calories and pretty good for you. And the kale. I've removed the stems from the kale. This is about 6 cups of kale, and it will fit in here, we hope. It will mat down a little bit as I go. Stir it around well and pick up the pieces. And And the last thing that I'll add will be 3/4 of a cup of chili lime cashew nuts. And these are one of Trader Joe's specialties. You could just use regular cashews, but the chili lime ones are really good. They're good just to eat as well. Then we need to make some dressing for our salad, and that I'll do in the food processor. And we'll start with some garlic, half a cup of canola oil, and I have to look at my recipe a little bit so I don't get messed up on this one. 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, and I use the lower sodium one. Two tablespoons of water. Two tablespoons of vinegar. And this is a rice vinegar. Just white vinegar would work as well. We want 2 tablespoons of honey. A tablespoon of sesame oil. This gives it a sesame flavor. Nice to keep in the refrigerator. And a tablespoon of lemongrass paste. These are a new way for herbs to be marketed. And you can find these in the grocery store. This is lemongrass paste. You could also use ginger, either chopped, or they sell that as well as in this paste form. The lemongrass adds a really nice flavor to this dish. So I will use that. I usually buy 1 package of it a season, use it in the summer for salads and anything Thai inspired. I do grow lemongrass, but don't seem to get around to harvesting it until later. So this is real handy to have in the refrigerator. And it keeps quite a long time in the refrigerator. It's found in the produce section of the supermarket. Then we'll add a little bit of lime juice, just a splash of lime. And mix it all together. Until everything is well combined. At this point, we can add it to the salad. We'll toss that around and get all the dressing out. We want to thoroughly mix all the ingredients in the salad. And that will be our salad for the barbecue. Next thing we're going to make are some veggie burgers, and I'm going to start with some oatmeal and 1/2 cup, and I'm going to pulse that until it's just broken up. At this point, I will add 1/2 can of black beans, and this is about 2 cups, so I'll add about 1 cup of the black beans. Some salt, a little kosher salt. and an egg, 1 egg, and a teaspoon of cumin, which is the spice in these. And we're going to mix that up until it's formed a paste type mixture. There we have a paste mixture. And I'm going to put the paste mixture back in with the rest of the beans. I admit it doesn't look great right now, but they are good burgers. I have one son who is vegetarian and one who is not. And I did serve these at a cookout last year, and the non-vegetarian, the meat eater, was all prepared not to like them. And he thought he'd taste one just to make sure. Well, he ate 3, so I think they were a hit. They have a nice consistency. We're going to add the other part of the beans back into this mixture, as well as 2 tablespoons of cilantro for some flavor. You'll notice I'm using the herbs from the garden. A scallion, again, from the garden, a good sized scallion, and 2 ounces of jack cheese that's been grated. And all of this it's mixed around thoroughly. And then the fun begins. We're going to make this into 4 patties. And you can use wet hands or just your hands to do this. It's kind of sticky right now, but we want to make 4 about the same size, so just kind of portion it out. And form them about a fairly thick burger. All right. Rinse off a little. At this point, we need to put them in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes in order to set. Actually, they can go in for longer than that. They'll just get a little firm, and you need to do that before you cook them. You can also freeze them. I have put the wax paper between them and put them in the freezer and kept them for quite a while. But we'll put those in the refrigerator. And I happen to have one that I had already made. And I have my pan heating up. And you can either do these on the grill. You'll notice how they've firmed up quite a lot. And you can either use a cast iron skillet, which I have here, or put them on the grill. I'll clean up a little while it's heating up. And they only take about 3 minutes per side in order to cook. And it is heating, so a little oil in there probably would be a good idea. Put a little bit of olive oil in. They also can be grilled. The rolled oats that you put in do absorb some of the liquid as they're setting in the refrigerator. And we'll get our things ready for it while it's cooking. I'm going to serve it on a whole wheat bun with a little salsa on the side. Avocado is also good on it. On them, tomato, sliced tomato, lettuce. You can add all sorts of things to dress up the burger. A little more jack cheese is always good too. While that's cooking, the other thing that I made up this week is with lemon verbena, lemon balm leaves, about 10 of each, and a whole lemon. I boiled that with about a quart of water and a cup and a half of sugar to make a syrup to make lemonade. Well, I tried it, and it was way too sweet for me. You let it sit for 48 hours after you've boiled it for 2 minutes until everything's dissolved and you have a syrup, and then you refrigerate it after you've strained out the lemon verbena, the lemon balm, and the lemon, the whole lemon, which has been cut in half. And you squeeze that all out, take that out and bottle it. But I found it was too sweet. But I also found it was the perfect addition to the dry NutraSweet lemonade, which I drink, the instant type of lemonade, the powder. Still tastes very fake to me, but if you add a little bit of this syrup, it really improves the taste a great deal. Sweetens it just a little bit. On its own, it's way too sweet, even added to water a quarter to 1. But I will keep it and use it and add it to my low-cal lemonade. So there's another thing to go with our picnic. And our burger is cooking here. About ready to flip over. You want to give it a good crust. Either on the grill or not. And we'll soon have it. The other things that I made today, I made cookies using mint. And these are mint chocolate chip cookies on the bottom. And they're made with a dark chocolate chip. And the mint is actually infused into melted butter. You melt the butter and add about a cup of mint that's been chopped, and you bring that to a boil and let it sit a little while, and then strain that mint out, and you end up with a very strongly mint flavored butter. I had never seen a recipe that used mint in that way, but it was quite successful because they have a nice little mint flavor in with the chocolate chip. The rest of the recipe is very much like any chocolate chip recipe. The top ones are mojito bars with a pecan crust. You make a pecan crust, and if you've ever made lemon bars, it's a similar recipe, except it includes lime instead of lemon, and you use lime peel instead of lemon peel, eggs, sugar, and chopped mint. So it gives you the flavor of the mojito. They didn't put any rum in them, which would probably have been nice. I don't know if I will add a little rum next time to give it that flavor. The mojito is a drink that's made with lime, mint, and rum, generally. And I think our burger is just about ready to put on the bun. And there we go. We have a burger that looks like a burger. And turn it up. And we can put a little salsa on it. And again, some lettuce or some other thing if we wished. And there's a burger that's going to taste very meaty, even though it doesn't have any meat. If you use gluten-free oats, it is also gluten-free. So that's another thing to consider if you have guests. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Liz Davey, and this has been A Walk in the Garden in mid-July on NCTV. you.